The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 2nd chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now after the Magi had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Well, people of God, we are going to venture into something new together this morning. The readings that we have today are not actually the assigned readings for the second Sunday of Christmas. They were the assigned readings for last week, and you just didn't get them because we did lessons in carols. In my planning for how this season would shake out, I was talking with a colleague about the calendar, and he mentioned that, he almost never preaches on these texts because he's usually on vacation, but he felt compelled to use them this year since we do get a second Sunday after Christmas before we hit Epiphany on Tuesday. The more I thought about this, the more that I felt called to do the same. In all honesty, the Sunday immediately after Christmas tends to be a little bit of an afterthought. Lots of clergy go on vacation, myself included. This service frequently is one of lessons and carols with no sermon. It's a low attendance Sunday. And while I have always made a point to include this gospel lesson from Matthew in lessons and carol services in previous years, I've never actually preached on it. So this is going to be new for you and new for me, and we're going to do it together. Because this is an important story. It's one that tells us so much about ourselves and humanity as a whole, and also about God. This account is commemorated on December 28th every year, regardless of the day of the week. It is the festival of the Holy Innocents, recognizing that each of these poor children died a martyr, unknowingly and unwillingly. This is not a happy story. This is not a cozy story to curl up around while we continue to soak in Christmas lights and holiday warmth. It is tragic and violent. It's a horrific narrative that shocks us out of the peace of the Nativity and into the harsh reality of a world steeped in sin. It is also a story about fear. How fear manipulates and controls and can bring out the very worst in anyone. Now I'm about to go on a little bit of a tangent, and so I encourage you to bear with me. If you have known a small child at any point in the last 12 years, you have probably experienced the hold that the Frozen franchise tends to exhibit. Am I right? It seems like regardless of gender, every child I know has gone through a Frozen stage where they want to watch little else. We are currently in that phase with Eleanor. Maybe she was first excited about it because her older cousin is obsessed with Elsa, one of the main characters. But Ellie has now become fully engrossed in all things Frozen, Frozen 2, the holiday short, and every other offering Disney Plus has, which thankfully is quite a few, so we can spread things out a bit. She will come up to us repeatedly, TV remote in hand, and hold it out to us saying, "Elsa?" Enough to say that that over the past 2 weeks in particular, I have watched each of the movies at least 5 times. And I'm pretty sure I'm severely underestimating that number. And that means that as I was beginning to think about this week's sermon, I could not help but find some parallels. Some things that struck me about how the movies play out. If you are unfamiliar with the plot lines of either or both movies, here's a general gist. It's the story of 2 sisters, the older one of whom, Elsa, has magical powers of snow and ice. As children, Elsa accidentally hurts her younger sister Anna while they were playing, and they go to get help. When they go to get help, they're told that these powers are wonderful, but if she is afraid of them or is taught to be ashamed of them, they can be terribly destructive. So naturally, the parents respond with love and support and openness about her learning her powers. I'm just kidding. If you've seen the movie, the parents basically lock her up in her room and tell her that her powers are too dangerous for anyone to be near her ever in her life. And she needs to be kept away from everyone, including her sister. And so they try to control her powers with heavy doses of fear and shame. Spoiler alert, this backfires spectacularly, and it kicks off the plot for the rest of the movie. In the second movie, fear also plays a role. There are questions about what happened 30 years ago when this enchanted forest was cut off from everywhere else, and it's discovered that Anna and Elsa's grandfather, the king, was distrustful of the people who lived in the forest because they interacted with and embraced magic. And so he concocted a plan to trick them with a supposed treaty that really was designed to weaken their land so he could eventually take over. He tells one of his soldiers, they follow magic, which means we can never trust them. Magic makes people feel too powerful, too entitled. It makes them think they can defy the will of a king. Elsa, seeing this conversation through a glimpse of the past, she responds, that is not what magic does. That's just your fear. Fear is what can't be trusted. I'm not up here in the pulpit saying that we all need to start believing in magic, but I am saying that what Elsa says is right. Fear cannot be trusted. I'm not talking about the fear that comes out of your basic survival instincts, right? Like when you're afraid to go skydiving because, hello, it's jumping out of a plane, trusting that this thing strapped to your back is going to open at just the right time to carry you safely to the ground. That seems like a good kind of fear. There are some fears that are designed to keep us safe, to preserve our health or our lives, and these are healthy. They're an important part of our world. They're part of what makes us human and part of God's creation. But there are so many other fears that are manufactured or that are fanned so far out of proportion that they have no connection to reality any longer. We are told to fear losing our status in society, leading us to care more about those we aspire to be like than those who are struggling to be respected for who they are. We are told to fear other faith traditions, leading us to become insular and suspicious of different beliefs. We are told to fear becoming homeless or destitute, encouraging us to hoard what we have while others go without. We are told to fear the world around us changing, causing us to create imaginary histories of our world when everything was good for everyone, despite the fact that there has never been such a time. Fear makes us focus in on ourselves. One description of sinfulness that I have always found compelling is that sin is the compulsion to turn inward instead of outward, to isolate ourselves from the larger community around us, to care more about me and mine than anyone and everyone else. And the fear makes it feel like a righteous effort. Fear tells us stories and exaggerations and lies, manipulating us into thinking that we are doing the right thing because it's making us safe, even though it's not. Or that we're doing the right thing because it's maintaining a system that works, even though it doesn't. Now, when we hear this story today about the Holy Innocents, we think about King Herod, who we don't actually know all that much about from what we read in the Bible. He has these very brief interactions with the Magi, and that's all that we get. It's his son, Herod Antipas, who has the ire of John the Baptist and who later has John arrested and killed. And so from the Gospel of Matthew, what we get from Herod, who is known as Herod the Great in history books, we get this sense that he is scheming and evil. Historical accounts tell us that Herod's reign was mostly seen as a kind of positive one. I mean, hence the moniker Herod the Great, at least great for the people in power. There were many building projects, he was respected, he was wealthy, and while he did impose steep taxes, they were not necessarily worse than the taxes in other parts of the Roman Empire. There was a period of peace in Judea during his reign. And so why does Herod feel the need to kill all of the children 2 years and under in Bethlehem? It was his fear. Fear that he would lose all that he had. Fear that his status would be diminished. Fear that he would lose his wealth, that his children would not inherit and rule after him. I can only imagine that this fear is distorting his reality, eating away at him, until the only option that he saw was to eliminate the threat. And if it took additional children needing to die, that was an unfortunate necessity, because the alternative in his fear-addled mind was worse. This is what fear does. It digs hooks into us and holds us captive until all we see is the threat, not the possibility. Not the hope, not the new experiences or relationships or opportunities. And so when we think about these fears that we are told over and over again to have, how could we look at them differently? What if instead of being afraid of losing our status in society, we sought out ways of leveling the playing field and creating equitable paths to success? What if instead of fearing other faith traditions, we learned about their practices and how faith informs people's lives and identified ways that we can connect and find common ground? What if instead of fearing losing our material wealth, we were generous with what we have, creating a world in which people care for one another, seeing that all needs are met and no one needs to be destitute? What if instead of fearing the world around us changing, we embraced the ways in which marginalized communities now are more able to fully participate in the world, in everything from disability access to civil rights? What if we pushed back? What if we pushed back against those fears that call out to us, and we told them that we are not afraid because God is with us? God hears our own fears, our laments, our pain, and God does not abandon us, but leads us through. God gives us the courage to love, to connect, to explore, to embrace, even when things feel scary. That's the whole point of this Christmas season. That God loves us so much that God came to dwell in our world, to dwell in our skin, to dwell with us, so that we know that if God is here, we need not be afraid. Emmanuel, God is with us in the face of fear.